So there has been a lot of big news happening in WWE, World Wrestling Entertainment recently. They had big news of their flagship show, Monday Night Raw, getting moved to Netflix starting January 2025, um, with no ads, seemingly, at least from what's reported. Um, they had The Rock, one of their biggest stars of all time, is joining in a board of directors role, I believe. But none of that even comes close to the giant news that hit this week of basically, one of the biggest names of the WWE, a man who has ran it for a long time, Vincent Kennedy McMahon, is facing a lawsuit right now from a woman who was taken advantage of. So this comes from Wrestling Ops, but it also mostly just comes from the Wall Street Journal. A woman who received a payout from WWE boss Vince McMahon has accused McMahon, the company, and a former executive of sex trafficking. Danelle Grant, a former employee at WWE headquarters, said in a lawsuit filed Thursday that she was abused and sexually exploited by McMahon while he was chief executive. She alleged that McMahon lured her with promises of career advancement and that he allegedly exploited her and trafficked her to other men inside the company. The lawsuit, filed in a Connecticut federal court, describes in graphic detail Grant's account of interactions with the businessman and TV personality. She alleged that McMahon and another WWE executive locked her in an office in WWE headquarters in Stamford on June 15, 2021, and took turns essaying her while other staff were working. In the middle of another workday on June 23rd, 2021, McMahon locked Grant inside his private locker room at WWE offices and forced himself on her over a massage table, the suit said. Later that day, McMahon's personal assistant delivered 15,000 in Bloomingdale's gift cards to Grant in her office. The suit also includes screenshots of explicit text messages that McMahon allegedly sent to Grant. A May 2020 message said, "I'm the only one who owns you and controls you. I want to F you." And there is an actual, um, complaint. There's a full article, document you can actually read about this. And I have read a large amount of it. Not all of it. Actually, I would probably say, I think maybe like 2/3. I read a large part of the beginning part, but at some point I literally just had to stop for a little bit. I did, and mostly just skimmed over it. I did really pay attention to some areas that were really talked about, but it's a lot. It's a lot, and there's evidence. There's screenshots. We have them right here of legitimate screenshots of stuff that McMahon sent to Miss Grant. And this is just disgusting. And again, I should go back to what I was talking about. Before. In I think it might have been late July 2022, or at least August 2023, early August. No, not 2023. It was late July 2022 or early August 2022. It came out that McMahon, you know, uh, I think the news around the time was that he used company funds in an affair, or in a relationship with a employee, and that John Laurinaitis was involved. But a lot of the details about it never really came out. It was always it definitely. And maybe before we really get into this, I should put in a trigger warning for SA, trafficking, just grooming, shit like that. I should really put this in. I'll probably put it earlier on when I edit the video. Trigger warning for a lot of sexual, of, I don't even know what to say. Just a trigger warning for SA, grooming, trafficking. This gets really gross. So if you're not comfortable with that, I wouldn't listen further than this. But like, it just gets, oh my god, it gets so disgusting. I don't know how much I could even say with this without you know pushing the line a little bit because it gets really gross and really disgusting. But I'm gonna get back to the original start of this. So late July 2022 or early August 2022, it comes out that Vince McMahon was using company funds in a relationship with an employee that also involved John Laurinaitis, who was like in talent relations, um, who was also a big figurehead in the company. And that's all we kind of really knew from that whole situation. We didn't know the gross graphic details about the situation until now. And everyone kind of knew there was definitely some um, exploitation of power. Obviously, there was with how big McMahon was with his role in the company and how you know she like the woman involved was is not a big name within the company. She's not like a known name to the public. So obviously there was going to be a power dynamic from like just out the gate, but nobody knew how bad it was until now. And at the time, WWE said there was going to be like a investigation into all of it, how it was going to, it was like a law firm outside of the company that was going to do it. According to the complaint here, it goes into it at some point, but basically that was just a sham. There was no real investigation into it. And in fact, there were executives and board members who actually knew of all about all of this. Maybe not all of it, but they knew about the situation and how it was a lot worse than people were meant to believe. Like again, as far as the public knew, this was just a man using his power over an employee and you know to his sexual events, but no one knew how bad it really was. Because this woman wasn't just a random employee that one day he took a liking to. This was a woman who, before even meeting McMahon, had nothing to do with WWE. Like, before she even came face to face with him, she was not an employee of WWE. She actually became an employee of the WWE by meeting with McMahon face to face through, like a friend of hers. It was like, the manager of the place she was staying at. And before all this happened, she was grieving because she lost both of her parents after. Actually, yeah, I'll just read what it says here. The two met in March 2019 when Miss Grant was dealing with profound grief and struggling financially after devoting years to around-the-clock caregiving. After devoting years to around-the-clock caregiving, her parents passed away. On top of that, she was unemployed and her family home was lost in her parents' bankruptcy. She was in a really bad place, and she went to the manager of the place she was living at the time, and they were able to get her connected to McMahon. She went straight to him, and McMahon automatically took a liking to her. Now, at the time, it wasn't like he wasn't explicit in what he was doing. He was definitely grooming her. From what was said in this complaint, in this document, basically McMahon, a large amount of what they talked about when they first met was their personal life, and she shared a lot of what she was going through, and McMahon was using a very classic groomer tactic of basically trying to relate to her in a way because what's said in this document is that at the time, he and his wife were separated, but not on paper. Like they were still married, but they no longer lived with one another. And he was kind of using his like isolation from his wife as a way to kind of warm her up to him in a way, being like, "Oh, I understand where you're coming through. Like I also feel very lonely because my wife's not around anymore." It's just it's I don't want to get too into it because it's really gross. But at the same time, like it needs to be said how disgusting this really is. So I don't want to get too into it, but I will list off like some things to make it very apparent of how gross this is. Um, I don't even know if I should. Like, if you are down, if you want to, I would read this for yourself. Again, I would advise if you're not, I would just warn you about like all the, SA stuff, the trafficking, the grooming in this. It could be very triggering for a lot of people, so I just want to put that out there before you even read this, if you want to. But it gets really gross. There's like a story there of McMahon having like a toy collection, if you know what I mean, um, of like, and they're like skin colored, and he would name the white, toys after white wrestlers who were in his employ, and he would name the black toys after black wrestlers who were also in his. Like, it's crazy, and we might know which one of the um who's named after. Oh god, it's gross. Like there, there is. They don't name the person, but they said that in 2019 there was a David versus Goliath match that featured a black wrestler. And there was a very infamous David versus Goliath matchup in 2019 involving a black wrestler that is very infamous within the wrestling community, not because of this, but when that came up in the complaint, a lot of people kind of put two and two together, and it's really gross. Um, Also, of course, John Laurinaitis is also brought into this. He's already out of the company for like ever since that originally took place. And also, ever since that originally took place, McMahon did step down. But during January of 2023, he basically forced his way back into the company. And ever since, and this was all like, and like he said, he was coming back because of like a merger the company was going to do, which there were talks of a time of, a merger with another company that ended up happening, which resulted in TKO, which is now like the holding company that WWE is under. And ever since then, Vince really hasn't had that much power. At least reportedly, he's hasn't had that much power within the company. But like, it's still gross. Like he very much again forced his way in there, and now he's being kicked out again. Or sorry, he's stepping down, despite the fact that he's more than likely not doing it willingly. But we'll get to that because we're still talking about this. But there's also other people who aren't named in this lawsuit. There's a couple like they're very like corporate level people from the sounds of it, but there is one wrestler who, while isn't named, is they call the way they describe the person involved is that they are a world class athlete, a former UFC heavyweight champion who, during July 2021, was looking to sign a new contract with the company. And McMahon, because the wrestler was considering other professional avenues, McMahon wanted to persuade them into staying with the company and used the woman to do so. Basically, using like pictures of her, actually got them in contact. I don't, from what I've read, there hasn't like he didn't do anything, but it's still like obviously, regardless if they actually did anything, it's still very damning. Just the thought of like they possibly could, or like just in fact, like the wrestler involved knew what was going on and wanted to be a part of it. And and you might know who this is because it's It's more than likely Brock Lesnar. I can't say for sure, but I mean, come on. There's so many hints throughout this entire document that it's definitely Brock Lesnar, at least during the parts that he comes up. Because Brock returned in August of 2021, and they even say that the wrestler was going to return at SummerSlam, which he did. And this was 2021. This was during a time where people didn't know if Brock was going to stay with the WWE because he wasn't there for a very long time at this point. But, like, it's pretty damning. There were plans of him returning at the Royal Rumble. Those plans are reportedly scrapped. There was a news report I saw recently that said Brock hadn't even gone down to Florida as of recently. And good. I hope they just don't do anything with him. Just let his contract run out. It like it's definitely him. That's the thing. It's definitely him, and it's just so gross. But yeah, Vince is gone. They officially they didn't kick him out. He resigned, but it was definitely more of like you have to get out at this point. And this and the reason why they and the reason why he's gone isn't even because of this. It's not because of the lawsuit. It's because of this right here. And it's because Slim Jim, who is a very big sponsor for the WWE, pulled out their advertising for the Royal Rumble like a day before. But a couple hours later, Vince McMahon just suddenly departed. And now Slim Jim is back sponsoring the event. And I think, first of all, I think just alone them getting rid of Vince is a great move. I hate that it's due to a sponsorship deal, but that's how capitalism works. So, who cares about the victim? We need our money. We really need that money. We need that Slim Jim money. Ooh, yeah. God. This is, like, I'm glad he's gone. I just, I hope for more of an action. Because there are still people involved in the company who were aware of this, who helped cover it up, and I really think that WWE should be letting a lot of those people go. But as far as we know right now, the news of people being let go who are connected to this kind of are only really the people who were connected to bringing Vince back. But hopefully, I don't know. They already tried one investigation. They already tried one investigation, but as we learned later on, like with this document, that was a sham. So hopefully, there's like an actual real investigation that goes on at some point where it's really looked into who was involved, who was shown these images, who knew about it, and they get kicked to the curb as well. Because according to this complaint, there was an entire tech team that knew of this. Like Vince went to them and just showed them the pictures of this woman that she didn't want shown. Again, this was completely against her own will. But uh, he showed them to the entire team, and they all rejoiced when they saw it. It's just so disgusting. And this woman has been left traumatized by this, obviously. And this is just from the few things that I've told you. There is so much graphic, gross stuff in this document. Again, if you want to read it, I purely want to state that there's a lot of gross stuff in this. So you better be prepared if you're willing to. If you're not, that's completely fine. No judgment. Because this stuff is a lot. But uh, all I can hope in this situation, I don't really care what happens to WWE in this case. Again, I'm glad they actually let him go, but at the same time, all I'm hoping for is uh, justice for the victim in this case. Lock Vince McMahon away, lock Laura Nias away, do whatever you can. Because these people should not be around anyone. Like, with their power and influence, they should not be trusted around regular people. Like, this gross because and that was a large contention for this whole operation was Vince basically using his influence as kind of a way to force her into a lot of these situations. Like and again, this isn't just some random woman. This is someone that while not someone who basically kind of just fell into his lap, just wanting help from a very dire situation. Again, she was not employed during this time. She was very much suffering financially, and she was kind of gifted this role just on her lap of this this billionaire basically just came to her and basically said I am going to find you a role and I'm going to give you a job. Just outright that's what he said. But she was so blinded by this experience she didn't really understand what was going to fall. And again, that's not her fault. I'm not trying to victim blame. None of this is her fault. A man with power saw an opportunity for someone who was incredibly down on their luck and used that to his advantage. This woman deserves nothing. This woman deserves nothing that has came her way. She deserves as much as she needs. Give her all the money. Give her fucking everything. She deserves it because she has gone through so much shit. The fact that there were so many people on the internet kind of spinning this whole conversation a little bit. There was a account named Backup Hangman, who is a journalist for the Wrestle Purists. And he decided to use this opportunity to instead of to make up gross, weird accusation. Not, first of all, an accusation, and second of all, obviously showing that he kind of cares more about the product in this, and rather than the actual victim speaking out. Because actually, see here, he tags the TKO account on Twitter. If Triple H is implicated in your findings as someone that was aware and complacent in assault, you have to fire him. Give Paul Heyman his job. Not like, oh, this guy is a piece of shit if he knew. You should give this job to someone else. Like, oh, worry about the placement of creative instead of, you know, I don't know. And first of all, this is a total wild accusation because even with the unnamed people in this court, because there are people who were named and people who are unnamed. Even with the people who weren't named in this lawsuit, in the document that I was talking about, Triple H never comes up. Triple H, if he never comes up, Paul never comes up. Levesque, his last name, never comes up. Like, to me, this is just such a gross situation that he's putting out there. Someone who is not implied in this suit at all, who during this time, like the time around this whole situation, like he was there for like some part, like not directly in the situation, but like there was a time in the company where Triple H wasn't involved, and like he wasn't involved because he was having like heart problems, so he had to step away from the company, and that's when a good amount of all of this was going on. So to imply him in this whole thing, like it's very weird. Again, it just feels like you don't actually care about the situation. You just want to talk about it. There's also Jim Cornette. Basically, like he's a very old school figurehead when it comes to professional wrestling, and the entire time he is basically, um, and during this whole situation, he is kind of just poking fun at the situation, kind of victim blaming in a sense. It's just really gross. Again, I'm glad he's gone, just because I don't think this man should be in power anymore. Hopefully, but at the same time, like more justice needs to be done for the woman involved, for just like again, throw him away, throw Jordan, throw Laurinaitis away, throw McMahon away, throw everyone who was involved in the situation away because they were not the only ones. Throw Lesnar away, all of them. Oh yeah, also there's Chris Jericho. Might as well talk about him, especially when we're talking about NDAs. Because the woman was forced to sign an NDA. I believe it like just I don't like know like I don't know the exact situation that led her to be able to come forth, but I'm glad she did. For those of you who don't know, Chris Jericho, a very um, long-standing, very famous professional wrestler, he's been having his own little problems when it comes to NDAs and SA. Um, while he didn't directly, as he was being, it was there's a whole situation about it. Basically, he was trying to, you know, corner this woman into doing sexual favors for him, and that came out. And the company that employs Jericho right now, AEW, has done nothing to deal with that situation, despite the fact that everyone knows about it. Like everyone knows, everyone in their fan base knows. They always boo him whenever they get to. They always chant like NDA when they can. There has even been a situation where in a backstage segment, which Chris Jericho was being interviewed, they literally cut the audio to the crowd, the live crowd, and just dumped fake audio from like previous, like previous crowds to make it seem like he was getting cheered. It was bad, but he got exposed for liking a tweet that says, "I want to see the same energy on Brock Lesnar and Vince McMahon the same way everyone jumped on Chris Jericho in the bogus Nick Hausman report." It wasn't bogus, by the way. People say that because Nick Hausman was basically saying that, basically implied that Jericho had some, problems in his past, but they never specifically said the woman that everyone would soon learn was involved in the situation. They said there were multiple accounts. Um, 2 days before the Rumble, it's the same thing that happened to AEW a day before World's End. There's a difference, though. They actually did something about it. For the right reasons? No. Obviously not. It's still not a good look. Obviously. And they should be questioned and pressured about it, especially when there are still people in the company who knew of it and actively tried to bring Vince McMahon back, even though he had already left at that point. The difference between that is that they actually did something about it. He's still in the company and is still being given high positions. Like, he still has a role backstage, and he is still being used as a on-screen personality. Like, again, like, I don't want to turn this into a WWE versus AEW thing, because neither of them are right in this situation, but one of them actually did something about it. Was, again, not for the right reasons. It was because of the stupid fucking sponsorship, but it was still done. He should not be around. It's just so gross. Like, like, wrestling has always been an industry where there's just a lot of gross people in it. There's always a lot of controversy. Like, they always, like, there will be times where older wrestlers will talk about, like, the environment of wrestling back when they were around and the environment of wrestling in the modern day, and they say it's a lot better. But it's situations like this where it really shows it hasn't. It's just that, we're just not as, you know, it's just we haven't learned about the gross stuff that happens backstage. It's just, you like to think that this industry would grow as time goes on, but it really just stays the same. It's really disgusting unless people actually do something about it. Like getting rid of Chris Jericho, get rid of Brock Lesnar, get rid of John Laurinaitis, get rid of McMahon, get rid of all these people who have let this type of behavior continue. Get rid of Tony Khan, because again, he's the one who, with this whole situation with Chris Jericho and Kylie Ray, allowed the situation to kind of happen. Well, not happen, allowed the whole situation to like just get swept under the rug until recently. Hello everyone, this is Editing Fruity here, and I'm just kind of adding this part at the end, because the video you just watched was actually recorded a couple days ago. It was like right before the Royal Rumble, and I'm just really here to kind of talk about the aftermath of that, because WWE held a press conference afterwards, which they do for all of their pay-per-views, at least like in the last year or so, and of course, and they had one this year, despite the fact that some people were speculating they wouldn't, purely because of all the stuff going on that I just talked about. But they did, and obviously the question came up. It came up, at least from my knowledge, at least 3 times. And I'm just gonna run through what exactly happened. As far as I remember, the first question was actually asked towards Cody, which I found pretty weird because he's not like a big person with power. He is like a media personality. He's one of their superstars who is employed by the company, but he doesn't exactly run anything backstage. But he was asked the question and he didn't answer it. He didn't just give like a nothing answer. He gave a pretty professional one. I would say it was a good PR answer. It was saying he didn't say a lot, but he did say enough, I think, without going too into details. Again, that's why I would call it a good PR answer. But most of the questions were asked towards Triple H, who is their chief creative officer. I believe that's his official title in the company. But he was asked, and he didn't exactly give great answers. The only reporter I know by name who asked one of the questions was Cameron Hawkins, also known as Seahawk on Twitter. He basically asked how the company was kind of making the environment safer so that an employee wouldn't be taken advantage of, like what happened in this situation. And Triple H very much gave an open answer, the answer was basically, we're trying to do everything we can. It was kind of a nothing answer. It wasn't a bad answer, but at the same time, he didn't really go into specifics. That's basically all he said. And again, not a bad answer, but like you would hope there would be more specifics for something like this, especially with someone with his especially with someone like him who has power over the company. Not complete power, but he's definitely in a high-ranking position. But the real bad answer came, I don't remember what the exact question was, but it definitely had to deal with the Vince stuff. And basically what Triple H said was that he didn't really want to focus on that. He really just wanted to focus on the positives of the event, which is not a good answer. It's not a good answer with something like this. It's really not. With something this, big, something this messed up. There, look, and the thing is that there was never going to be a good answer with this, but this was probably one of the worst ones. Like, the best he could have done is just say, this is a legal issue, and I just can't speak further on it. He did say that he hasn't read the document that I showed earlier, which in my opinion is fair. This is his father-in-law. He is married to Vince's daughter, and honestly, like, look, if you learn that your grandpa did a lot of gross stuff, did a lot of gross bad stuff, and there was a document out there that listed all the things he did, could you honestly say to yourself that you would read it? I wouldn't. I definitely don't want to know what my grandfather did, but I wouldn't, go on my way to support him, which Triple H didn't do. He didn't show any real support to Vince. He just tried to shoot along, but it was definitely the wrong answer to give at this point. Again, I'm not sure if like someone prepped him, say like, oh, you just say this, but it just feels very off. And in this video, I do talk about like the Tony Khan Chris Jericho situation, and I was kind of hoping better for this situation because of the way that Tony Khan handled that. Basically, when he was asked that sort of question with the whole, Chris Jericho NDA situation, he looked ridiculous, and he just kind of he just tried to downplay the accusation a bit. He basically said it was based on unfettered rumors, despite the fact that the person affected, like the person involved in the situation, co-signed on the information that was being reported. And it was gross. It was disgusting, and I was hoping, since it wasn't that far from, it was only like a month ago, that Triple H, at least in this situation, would look at that and be like, okay, I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't just like kind of sweep it under the rug. I should at least give some sort of an answer, even if the answer is just it's a legal issue. It's a legal issue that's currently ongoing. I don't feel comfortable commenting on it. But that's not what happened, and I'm not trying to place this in a sort of like WWE AEW situation. Like, I didn't want Triple H to give a better answer because, like, oh, I don't like AEW, I only like WWE. I don't give a shit. This is beyond just what company I personally like or what other people personally like. This is about people's lives, and I feel like trying to make it about, which company is better is disgusting. I was just hoping that regardless of this, I was just hoping there would be a better answer instead of this one.